Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we've got something pretty cool. We've got ourselves a new Bandai Godzilla figure, but what you actually see is Godzillasaurus, and I think Godzillasaurus is super cool. It's basically just a dinosaur version of Godzilla, and I've always really been a big fan of it, and I have no figures of it at all that I can recall. So once I had seen this one go up for pre-order on Big Bad Toy Store, I knew I wanted to have it in my collection, so I placed an order, and it recently went through, so here we are. You can see it also features Dorat figures, which is very interesting, and I definitely didn't have any Dorat in my collection prior to this, so that's kind of cool, I guess. But you can see the box art basically shows off the figure, as well as, of course, the logo from the film that you'll find this dinosaur. Over here, you can see a shot on the side, again, of the Godzillasaurus. On the back, some random information. The title and everything up here, actually, and then a different shot of our Godzillasaurus over here. So let's go ahead, pop this box open, and check it out. So there we are. There's everything that is inside the box. You've got the Godzillasaurus, as well as our 3 Dorat figures, which is pretty fun to actually have 3. They didn't go cheap on us when it comes to that. They gave us 3 of them, which is nice. And of course, the Godzillasaurus actually looks really good for the most part. I think the colors might be slightly too dark, but for the most part, I think it looks pretty nice and, you know, quite high quality. And it's just so cool to finally have a nice figure of that dinosaur, I guess you could call it. I'm going to actually just move the Godzillasaurus here out for just a moment and then bring up the Dorat so you can see that. You can take a look at it. Obviously, it's just a gold coloration. There's no real fine coloration or anything, like no details in the paintwork of the Dorat, but sculpt-wise, like, that's spot on. That looks really nice, and the texturing and everything looks really good as well, especially as you move down through the body. You can see the texturing looking quite impressive. You've got the wings, of course, and that very goofy looking head sculpt that it has also looks pretty good. When you turn it around, you can see the back of the wings as well as the tail. Again, the detail is really quite vibrant and crisp. There's just not much to the Dorats, and you really wouldn't expect there to be a whole lot. And as we can see, each one, I believe, is the same. Yeah, there's no real differences between one figure to the other, so just a fun little extra are those Dorats. They're obviously not the main attraction. That would be this, as we have the Godzillasaurus. And overall, again, when it comes to the likeness of Godzillasaurus, they absolutely nailed it. I think it looks great. Focus camera, there we go. The skin texture looks really good, definitely quite vibrant and crisp. The eyes are painted nicely, as you actually have a little variation of color in there with a white. Kind of looks like maybe a little bit of like reddish tones and then a black pupil. You can see the same over here for the other eye. This eye is actually placed a little bit better than this one. You can see if you look at him from the front, he's not quite looking directly at us, so the eyes aren't perfectly placed. The inside of the mouth also looks quite nice. We have a pinkish tone, or a reddish tone actually, for the upper side on the inside of the mouth. Some fairly decent detail. We can see tons of teeth in there for our Godzillasaurus. They're also painted pretty decently, not too sloppy or anything. Definitely not looking all that sharp, though. They are very rounded. They look a little better on the lower jaw, though. And again, the paintwork is quite precise as a whole. We do have a pink for the tongue as well, and the tongue itself is pretty decently textured. We can even kind of see like a throat back there when you move into the back of the mouth and heading into the throat. And there is a bit of a satin shine, but not a massive one in there, but it does look pretty decent overall. I just wish the teeth on the upper side were a little bit less curved, because they do look kind of generic because of how curved they are. As you move back, you can see again some decent paintwork. There's a few different variations of browns. We definitely have some washes that have been applied to the figure. I'm actually going to go ahead and readjust the camera just slightly to see if I can get this paintwork to show up a little bit better. You can see a little bit of like a lighter brown has been dry brushed over those sort of osteoderms and scutes and stuff moving over the back of the Godzillasaurus, and that looks quite nice. We can see again the dry brushing runs the entire way down along the back. One thing I also noticed is there is a seam right here where the head was connected. It's fairly kind of hidden on this side. You can see the seam for the jaw, though, where the lower jaw was applied as well, right there, which is a little bit more obvious. but the seam, I think, on this side is definitely a little bit more obvious than what we saw on the other side. But the funny thing is, when you look at the box, they didn't even try to hide the fact that there were seams on this, because even on the prototype, the seams were still visible. But as you move down, you've got more really nice looking skin texture, really quite vibrant scales as we lead through, kind of like some skin wrinkles and folds here and there. You also have a lighter variation of a brown as you move down here through the throat, and again, some dry brushing that has been applied. We can see the throat right there, and I think overall the paintwork looks quite nice. And as we move down here, we've got some more really nice dry brushing here on the underside with a lighter tone, kind of like a light tan. It looks like that has definitely helped to highlight some of the skin texture here on the underside of our Godzillasaurus. They've also applied with an airbrush, obviously, some nice variations of browns, kind of moving through like darker browns that have been very smoothly applied. There's even a little bit of like almost reddish browns on the inner parts of the thighs as well, which is nice. The skin texture, though, is again really vibrant. Like, it looks fantastic as you move here through the underside. Definitely a very high quality version of the Godzillasaurus. As you move over here, again, the skin texture looks absolutely awesome. Moving down through the arms as well. Again, the skin, kind of like the scale detail, sort of like changes a little bit, switches up as you move out, and becomes, of course, really fine as you move into the hand and into the fingers. But you can even still see some really nice, vibrant individual scales out there on the hand. The fingers are also sculpted nicely. The claws are painted with a nice light tone, like an off-white sort of a tone, and they look okay. As you move down, there is a very obvious seam moving through the midsection, and I think that's probably the ugliest seam on the figure as a whole. Same deal as you move over here, like it's actually even maybe even a little bit more obvious over here on this side, which does not look very good, but it is not the end of the world, I guess, because again, it's not like they tried to hide that. Like, it seems, even looking at the box, that you can see that on the prototype, but it is super, super obvious, unfortunately. As you move down, though, as you lead into the legs, you've got the muscle definition very nicely displayed. You also have a darker tone for the thigh, and it lightens up as you move down into the lower part of the leg. Again, with a lighter variation of a brown, similar to what we have on the underside. The skin texture, again, absolutely gorgeous on this figure. You've got some nice musculature shown off in the calf as well, and all sorts of creases and wrinkles to the skin moving down into the foot sculpt. And as you move down into the foot sculpt, you again can see the toes as well as the claws. There is even a little bit of fine detail to the claws, which looks nice, and we do have dew claws for our Godzillasaurus. And then we move back up and out into the tail, and luckily I don't really see any seams moving out into the tail. The tail does lead up and curve around, and it looks really good. The paintwork looks really nice. Again, variations to the different shades of browns added. Nice smooth transition to the lighter tones of the underside, as well as, again, some washes that have been added to help amp up the detail. And overall, I think the paintwork on this, like I said, even though it is a little bit probably too dark, still looks really nice and very realistic. You can see the same thing again over here on this side as what we had seen on the first side. Even a little bit more like dry brushing with some darker browns have been added over here. So it is definitely like one of the most high quality Godzillasaurus figures that I can ever remember seeing. I think Bandai really did a good job overall on this, and interesting pose. I'm not a super huge fan of the pose, but it's not terrible either. As far as a size goes, for a length, you're not going to get much in the way of a length. I guess we'll go from the arms to the tail, about 6 inches or around 15 centimeters. Mostly what we'll get is a height, and you're looking at about, if I get off the foot, about 6¼ inches or around 16 centimeters in height. And for our little Dorat figures, you are looking at pretty much around 1 inch or about 2½ centimeters in height. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovisaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A Human Being next to our Godzillasaurus. And as you can see, again, it's not huge, but it's not small. However, it's not like, you know, in the size range as most other kaiju, but it is the Godzillasaurus, so it shouldn't be absolutely gigantic, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. And for a few other kaiju comparisons with this, here is the only SH Monster Arts Godzilla figure that I have so far, but you can see again that the Godzillasaurus is pretty much in the same size as far as a height goes to our Godzilla. And if it actually had its head facing straight forward like Godzilla, they'd pretty much be looking eye to eye, I would say. If we bring in the Hiya Toys King of the Monsters Godzilla, though, you can see that that Godzilla is significantly larger than our Godzillasaurus. Not a whole lot when it comes to the height, obviously a little bit higher, but definitely a whole lot more body mass. But if we bring in the 2014 Godzilla from Hiya Toys, you can see that it's actually a little bit shorter than our Godzillasaurus. And then one more comparison, we have one of the Playmates Godzillas, which are fairly common nowadays, so I feel like would be a good one to bring in for a comparison, next to our Bandai Godzillasaurus, and as you can see, they are kind of similar in size. So Bandai did a pretty darn nice job on this. It's actually quite high quality overall, and you know, when it comes to like Bandai Godzillas, for the most part, what I'm used to are like those older, like, you know, classic, I think like 6-inch standard kind of articulated Bandai's. Like, I'm not used to such high quality Bandai Godzilla stuff, especially when it comes to the paint apps, but it is very nicely done overall. I think they did a great job on the sculpt. It's extremely screen accurate from what I can tell and what I remember, and the skin texture and fine detail is honestly through the roof when it comes to how highly detailed this is. It looks very, very impressive. The paint apps as well are really well done. Like I said a few times, I feel like it should be a little bit lighter and maybe have like a slight grayish tint to it, but for the most part looking more brown than anything. However, this is just more so really dark browns, but the actual application of the paint does look very natural and realistic. The transitions are pretty smooth. They've done a good job of adding in washes and dry brushing and stuff to highlight the detail. The mouth area looks pretty decent, but I'm not a huge fan of the way the teeth look. I feel like the teeth could have looked a little bit more sharp and more realistic, but it's not half bad overall. I think it still looks okay. And the fact that you do have some Dorad figures is pretty fun. Again, if you are familiar with this film, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah from 1991, you will be very familiar with the Dorad as a whole, so it is fun to actually have a few figures of that. And again, I didn't have any prior, so nice to be able to welcome not only a Godzillasaurus into my collection, but some Dorads as well. So if you are interested in this, I will include a link in the description to where I purchased mine on Big Bad Toy Store, so check that link, grab it if you want it, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.